Right, guys, I've got Deb Turner on stage. Deb, please, can you introduce yourself to the room and then we can have a chat?
Yeah, brilliant. So I'm Deborah Turner, and it's amazing that we have a young Deborah in the room. I don't know any young Deborahs, so thank you. A little shout out to the other Deborah. So Deborah Turner, so I'm a chartered surveyor, and I've worked in private practice and public sector for many, many years, and I decided to start my own business about 20 years ago as a property consultant, having lots of experience in the property sector. And on the back of that, having started my own business, I have also now become the national lead for the Federation of Small Businesses for Women in Enterprise. So I act as a volunteer for them, basically encouraging more women to either start a business or assist them in how to start a business. And we do a lot of the Federation of Small Businesses lobby the government around things that affect women in business. And then lastly, I'm the co-founder of Breakthrough Women, which is a networking and training company for women by women.
Yeah. So what Deb hasn't told you guys is what amazing work Breakthrough Women is doing and how much it's grown. Because you and Sue started it in during COVID, was it?
When was it? 2022.
2022. And can you tell us how that started?
Yeah, so basically, the work I was doing with the Federation of Small Businesses was, as I say, we were doing grassroots, finding out women who were starting a business, what they needed, what was lacking. But also, we basically found out that there were a lot of women who wanted to start a business, but were fearful of doing that because either they didn't think there was the right support, they didn't have access to some amazing role models, and they didn't feel that there was the right information there. Sue and I were running some women's events, women in business events for the Federation of Small Businesses in Kent, and they took them all online during COVID. And of course, we all know as women that we love a good chat, but we love building a community and we like being in a room with other like-minded women. And during COVID, obviously, we couldn't do that. We weren't allowed to do that. But when we were allowed to do that, unfortunately, some organisations weren't willing to go back in the room. They were a little bit fearful. And because a lot of businesses are run by men, only 25% of entrepreneurs are women. Come on, girls.
Yeah, I know.
We've got to change that, right?
Where is it? Where's Nisha and Deborah? Angelica.
Yeah, we've got some great women in the room who, really need to be going for it. So, as a result of that stat, we found that trying to step back into a room when everything had been taken offline, with a lot of men in charge perhaps of some of that decision-making, they didn't want to go back in the room. So Sue and I said, well, look, if no one else is doing it, we want to go back in the room. We love making connections with the right women. So we thought we'd just do it ourselves. And we did.
Yeah. I know. And so now you have this community of women who are basically thriving because you have supported them, because you get involved with them from startup to throughout the whole journey. It can be at any point from startup to sell up.
Yeah, exactly that.
So no matter where you are on your entrepreneurial journey, you provide that networking and that support and that training.
So it's what we found is that targeted business support for women was lacking. So there's a lot of business courses out there, but what we found, and I'm speaking from experience as running a business for many years, I've made a lot of mistakes. I've done a lot of courses that are still in a drawer. I take no notice of because they weren't practical. They weren't related to me. They weren't bespoke for me as a business. Janita spoke about how sickle cell affects her in a very different way from the next person. And everything is bespoke. The way that you need help is bespoke. And it's the same in business. I mean, crikey, it's not the same in terms of what you go through, but every business is different. Right. And they need that hand-holding at the right time in the right way for them. And I think that's because a Breakthrough at the moment, we're a small women-led business and we can offer training in a really bespoke way that you have like-minded women with you in that community. And we basically support you through that journey, as you say. At the moment with the startup community is just absolutely phenomenal, but it's really different in terms of what people need on their journey and where they are on their journey.
It's a bit like in health and in wellness as well, right? Nothing quite like hearing it from another woman who's walked the walk before you. I mean, for me, that's a no-brainer, isn't it? And that probably explains why it's been so successful. People are buying into that because it's a very natural thing.
Yeah, and we don't want women to make the same mistakes that we've made.
Yeah.
You know, it's we've been there, done it, worn the T-shirt, and therefore we've seen what can happen. We've had to overcome certain barriers. And if we can help Gen Z not have to do the barriers, and therefore they're going to get there much quicker.
Yes.
I mean, and it's about
Yeah.
lifting other women up. It's about helping them, not about trying to keep them down. It's not about competition. It's not about comparing yourself with the next. It's about empowering every woman to be her best self and have her best life.
I mean, my journey with being Health Mary's SheEO does put me in contact with a lot of women who are in health, for instance, mainly in the health sector, and who have had no training whatsoever. People are still surprised. How am I a doctor and a businesswoman and an entrepreneur? I don't know, but yeah, I'll tell that story another time. But a lot of them are in health. They have a lot of talent. They have a lot of passion. They have a lot of talent to give, but not the business acumen part of it that will then allow them to deliver that to their communities. I feel that they need to know about what you do. So how can they know about what you do, and how can they get in touch with other sort of formats or organizations that can help them, basically? So what I'm trying to say is that they need it, but they don't know that where to find the help. It's the short form of what I just said.
Yeah, and I think the thing is that most people, they have this idea that they want to start a business because they found either a passion or they found something that they're really brilliant at. I mean, it's always good if you're really brilliant at something and you love it. That's when you start the business. Yeah. And of course, you know, they're so excited and they just want to get their message out there, and it's all about getting out and telling people what they do. But of course, they forget that it's a business at the end of the day. It's not their baby. And we hear quite often people say, yeah, but it is my baby. No, it isn't your baby. It's your business. And you have to kind of start with the end in mind. Why have you created this business? What's your big why? Simon Sinek talks, you know, it's a great TED talk and podcast. He says, what's your why? But it's almost, you have to start with the end in mind in terms of where are you going with it? What do you hope to achieve? And when you look back and think, okay, how do I get there? What you need to get there is definitely the numbers. If you don't know the numbers in your business, then you have not got a business ultimately. And you have to know who your audience might be. You might say, well, anyone can have my service. I can serve everybody. No, you can't. Because, you know, you have to understand what your market looks like. Where are your market hanging out? Your market may well be hanging out on TikTok, but I know my market aren't hanging out in TikTok. If I was on TikTok, it would be an absolute fun and I'd have a board and I'd love it. And I definitely want to see Isha's videos about fashion. I definitely need them. But, you know, for the people that I am selling my services to as a property surveyor, they are not hanging out there. You know, they're
LinkedIn.
Exactly, you know. So it's about understanding those things, and it's about taking you through that process, you know, about where do you find marketing? How do you get the right financial advice? How do you make those business decisions, those really important business decisions that mean that you don't fail? Of course, you make mistakes. We all make mistakes. But it's about that trying it, testing it. If it doesn't work, start something else. Start it again.
Fail and fail fast.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So you must have heard quite a few whys, because you come in contact with women who are starting businesses, and I'm sure you probably get round to asking them at some point, what is your why? What are the common whys? What do most women say to you is the reason they want to start a business?
Yeah, most women start a business because they want more balance. I'm not going to say work-life balance, because when you start a business, that is your life.
It's no longer
there is no, it's like, yeah,
it's
it's just,
life, yeah.
That's life. But predominantly it's about flexibility. So they may have worked in a corporate environment. They may have perhaps not had the best experience, and You know, they do want it all. They want to have a family. They want to, they might have other caring responsibilities of their own. They want to serve their friends and their community, but they also need and want to make money. And it's about how can they do that in the best way for them. And often having a 9-to-5 job in the corporate environment, there's no such thing as 9-to-5 in corporate. No. It's very, you know, it becomes so much part of life if you work in in certain environments, particularly if you're in a male-dominated industry, which I was. As a surveyor, when I started out, only 2% of surveyors were women, even less were brown women. So, you know, it was a very different environment. So for me, certainly, I couldn't even be myself at work, leave alone kind of understand that I could have a work-life balance, as it were. And so that is particularly the main reason, is that women have either had a struggle or it's almost like there's a push to start it. What we're finding is few women start a business from leaving university. So, you know, hats off that you're already kind of on that, starting that journey. But it's almost as a result of either a bad experience or of thinking that they can't have it all in their current situation. That's why they start a business. It's fascinating.
Do you think those are realistic whys, right? So we want balance. Is that possible?
Yeah,
to have balance.
Absolutely, it's possible. As long as, of course, you know, you follow that business journey. So you have to start with that. What is it that you need from your business? So if you know you need or you want to, if you've got a family, if you want to leave your children a house or a business in itself, or, you know, you want to be able to at 50 go off and lay on a beach and still be, you know, making an income. It's like all those things, you know, you have to kind of start out with knowing that it is a business and that you have to have those financials to be able to drive and start to get to that end point. That end point is, you know, if you need to pay a mortgage, you need to pay rent on a premises, if you've got a bricks and mortar building, you know, what's your marketing budget, all of those things. It's like that feeds in, and then you can work back and say, right, okay, in 5 years' time, I need £1 million. That's what my business needs to have in 5 years' time. Okay, so what does year one look like? What does year two look like? And the whole point is about creating your success. Your business may not need to generate a massive income, but what it might need to do is produce enough money for you to live a very nice lifestyle, be able to take 3 hours off during the day to look after yourself from a health perspective or for family caring responsibilities. It's like build the business you want, but you need to know kind of what that end game looks like.
Do you have to have a business to have this sort of structure and this mindset? Because a lot of women never become the typical business women, but I think we're all business women, whether we own a business or not. The art of even raising a family is a business in itself, you know. So do you think that we all need this sort of structure? Generally, whether or not
I think
you're a business owner?
I think women have that innate talent. I think women just have that ability to be able to switch between many different things, to wear many different hats. All of us, as you said, you know, you, on a daily basis, you are probably juggling so many roles. Yeah. And I think, you know, whether you call it a business or you call it multitasking, I think
motherhood.
Yeah, exactly. We have this ability to naturally take on responsibility and caring responsibilities, both for ourselves and for others, in a different way. Yeah. You know, I'm not saying men can't and don't do it. Absolutely, they do, but they do it in a very different way. And women receive and want to receive information in a different way to men. And I think once we tap into and understand how women receive information, deliver information, it's a marketer's dream, you know, kind of when you understand that.
I think that's what's really special about Breakthrough Women. What you just said there about how do women want to learn? How do we want to receive information? And that's, I think, what you've cracked there that is so important, because quite like in other industries like health, it's not a cookie cutter situation. As a species, like as women, we have our own nuances. We have our own language. The way we perceive the world is different. But the healthcare, the packages, the leaflets, they're not always designed for the end user, if that makes sense, because we're not always part of the decision at the very top. So for you, for what you're doing in Breakthrough Women, I think that is really tapping into something that most other people don't, which is how do women want to get that information? Because that's the only way it's going to, make any difference.
Yeah, no, we desperately want women to reach their full potential. And I think by trying to really understand what it is they want and they need, and because we as women have either kind of considered that or been through that, I think it's probably easier for us to do that than perhaps others who haven't come from that same experience, like lived experience of being a woman in a corporate environment or, trying to start a business in a challenging situation.
Yeah. And I imagine that being in that space offers an opportunity for people to be natural, to just be more amenable to sharing if they feel safe, and in an environment where they feel understood and seen and heard. Does that make sense? Like they're more willing to come forward with the problems, and therefore more able to get solutions because they've been able to speak up.
Yeah, I mean, they feel able to, and it's a safe environment. And I think this is what we'd found. The research that we'd done was that there were some brilliant training courses, but they were often either delivered by men and women and attended by men and women. And in that space, women perform differently because they're more guarded, so they won't be their authentic self. They feel they have to come with a particular manner about them, which is why I loved Isha's comment that she's like, this is me, and I'm bringing my whole me to work, and they are privileged to have me, and rightly they are. And women of a certain age, or having had perhaps poor experiences, will still come with some baggage around that, so they'll be quite guarded and they won't share their true experience, and that's why we've created this really safe environment where women can be their whole self from start to finish, from that whole business journey. And don't get me wrong, we have tears, we have laughter, we have anger, but that's what we want. That's what we want to see, because that's when you're being real.
This is one of the reasons why I am 100% on the SheEO journey. So when my very first few months as the CEO of Health Mary, I had in my mind how I wanted to run the company as a CEO, but I very quickly turned that on its head, because initially my model of what a CEO looked like was a male model, right? Show up to work, suited up, let's go get it. That is literally all I knew. At the time, those were the only examples. All the books I read, and I read a lot, guys. Your Elon Musks and your Philip Knights, and I know all about them. But I then thought that actually I'm gonna show up as a woman. This is, first of all, this is not a competition. This is not or any of that. But in order to be able to do this job properly, I need to do it as me, with all of my womanliness, with my compassion, my femininity, my vulnerability, not afraid to show it on any given day as Health Mary SheEO. So you creating this space where women can be women in business, and a space where they can lead as females, is just brilliant. And I'm all for it, which is why you're here, so that you can tell everybody who might be listening to me on my platform all about it. Because I think it's important that we own our femininity.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, exactly the same experience as you. I had to hide who I was, had to be one of the boys, fade into the background, think that you have to act like men, and because that's all you see. And it's that, as we hear so often, Sheryl Sandberg, I think, coined it, is that if you can't see it, you can't be it. And that's our passion. It's about, we have to show up, and that's our complete and utter message. Because by showing up, we are demonstrating to other girls and other women that they can do it. You can have everything.
Very early on, as a young person, my role models, so to speak, if I can call them that, my role models were the women in the books I read as a young woman. So Barbara Taylor Bradford, The Woman of Substance, To Be the Best. Those were the books I read as a young teenager in Nigeria. I won that book in a national essay competition. and that book to be the best. Emma Hart was the name of the character in the book, and she was who I wanted to be. In real life, as I got older and became working young woman, I didn't see a lot of Emma Harts. Where are all the Emma Harts?
Exactly.
Right? Because you do have really strong, powerful people. Now and again, you see this woman who is the director of Google or something like that. I'm like, girl, where have you been? Right? So how come their narratives are not as strong?
That is exactly the reason when I started the work with the Federation of Small Businesses. So we did some research with, I can't remember which university, but universities. And what we were hearing from young women and older women, actually, women who had perhaps stepped out of work, they were 50 plus. And what they were saying is, but there's no one for us to see who is succeeding. We see the big names, but we don't want that. We don't want to be particularly in the spotlight. We don't want to be particularly on a stage. What we want is just to see successful women sharing their stories. So they said, we just want real, normal role mums who have set up a business and then succeeded. And that is what we are so passionate about. It's like, just share your story in whatever platform or way. That's why I was keen to ask you, why a book and not, as a young person, to me, I think of all young people, all they want to be is an influencer on social media or on YouTube. But so I was really interested, and it just warmed my heart that you use the book as a platform. And that's what I mean. It's about using your platform to get your voice out there in any way, shape or form, and celebrating just the small wins. Doesn't have to be a massive celebration. And that's kind of what women need, is to be able to tap into real, normal women who are out there doing the do, just walking the walk.
Yeah. It's all of this generational thing, isn't it? Because for me, in terms of what you said about just being more present online for the younger people to see what success looks like, because success, I am a successful woman, but the success in itself looks very, very different from the next person and the next person.
Absolutely.
So for me, the SheEO Diaries is about that, for them to see it as it unfolds, if that makes sense. And I have my, some days I'm like, girl, what the hell are you doing? Oh, yeah. What if all this goes to pots, right? And because you get the what ifs.
Absolutely.
But for me, the fear of not doing it at all is worse than the fear I have from trying and falling face down in front of everybody. But I also have the confidence that there are people that will pick me up in a way. Like every day I meet new women.
And they won't let you fall. That's
yes, just what I mean. And this is one thing I want to communicate to people, that this fear of doing something and failing, it's almost in our mind. There is rarely a situation where there isn't someone else there, especially another woman, to help you up.
Absolutely.
So just do it.
Yeah.
Just go for it, right?
And just ask for help. Yes. I mean, how often do women feel like, oh, I better not ask. I don't want to appear that I either don't know or that I'm lacking the intelligence or the experience. No, just ask, because we've all been there. We're all scared to ask. There's no stupid question. Just ask, and there will be a woman there ready to help you, and they'll have your back. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Do you have any role models?
I have loads of role models, and I think I'm really lucky that at the time when you're growing up, you kind of, I suppose, don't see them as such. But I was really lucky to have, so my mum was a working woman, even of that age. So, my dad's from India, was from India. I lost my dad a few years ago. And that tradition of mixed race. So he was very much, it's all about education. And I again, just to echo Aisha's comment about, you had to do this, and that to make sure your parents were happy. But that actually went a whole lot longer than 21. So hats off to you for yes, I've done that bit. but yeah, traditionally, so my mum will turn 90 next year. So traditionally, she wouldn't have been a working woman. She would have been a housewife. That would have been her role. But she did work, and she was a nursery nurse. So we for a long time we said in the family, my mum was the only person who had letters after her name, because she had a qualified nursery nurse. So actually, at the time, now I look back and I think actually she was such a strong role model. She didn't kind of play that role because my dad was very much, our household was led by him, and in the best way. I had amazing parents, but she very much played the housewife, even though she was a working woman, and I really didn't notice it so much at the time. And in the same way, my grandma, again, because that Eastern background, she lived with us, but again, she worked till the day she died. She was a very strong, independent woman. And I now look back and I think, oh my God, they really shaped how I viewed women and what I could achieve. So although, my parents were very keen on education, going to university, but equally they were very much, but you can and will do that. There was no kind of aspiration around, oh yeah, but then when you've done all that, then you're just going to get married and have kids. It was very much about, you can and you will achieve. So absolutely, I know that they were very strong characters in my growing up.
Yeah.
And then now I'm surrounded by incredible women every day. I've got one sitting right here in front of me, and I just think hats off. And
right back at you.
Absolutely. I get to do Breakthrough Women with two other, Sue's my direct business partner, and then Susie Warren Smith, who she delivers all our training. So, she sold her business to Ernst Young, who, as accountants in the room, you will know that's a phenomenal success, right? So in her own right, she's very successful. But to be fair, every woman I meet in my networking journey and, in my world now in surveying, I surround myself with other female surveyors, which is absolutely incredible because, as I say, for a very long time, there weren't many at all. Yeah. And now it's only about 10% of surveyors are women, so we're still not great, but we're doing well. So and they're all role models because they are working in a very strict male-dominated white environment, and they're smashing it. And every day I'm thankful that I know them and they're part of my community, which is incredible.
Yeah. Amazing. One of the first things I often say because my daughter she's very, very kind of feminist, and she's all about women. And sometimes she says something like, oh, this is a man's world. I say, girl, it's not really a man's world. Basically, we need to be thinking about it as our world and showing up as women, not as women in a man's world. Nobody gave them the birthright for the world to be theirs. But I think that the more we talk openly about what it feels like to be a woman who is successful, who is striving to be successful, the better is going to shape the world.
Yeah, we can be that change. Yeah. And, phenomenal women in the room who are going to be part of that. Yeah. And, we will. Yeah. The shift is happening, and it's only going to get better, right?
Yeah, it will get better.
I think women who are perhaps struggling on a kind of personal basis, sometimes that's one of the reasons they start their business, so that they have a voice in a different environment. And it's really interesting that you start to actually see a transition because, they gain more confidence. And often it's about confidence. That's often the main piece. Mm. And to be fair, they might have to then make a transition. But sometimes just that day by day, those small changes, they can help change other people's perspective, whether that's their business partner or their partner in life. It doesn't always end. We don't always get that happy ending, but often that's a real pivot. They reach a point where they aren't willing, perhaps, to continue with that oppression, and sometimes that's the trigger. Oh, crikey. That's a really tricky one because every business, every person is different, and everyone will deal with it differently. I guess it's a very difficult one because often starting the business will either be the transition to change that's really positive, or it's the transition to change that ultimately might be positive, but it might mean that it's a very rocky journey. And, and what's really interesting is that we now have women as part of our community who help women through that. And I never even knew that was a thing, never knew it would be a job or a business. And it's amazing. And some of those women are part of the Health Mary app who, they are therapists and, they help women through that journey.
One of the main things I'm doing with Health Mary is creating that environment where there's no other pressure other than to show up and be your whole self in the platform. There's no pressure to perform. There's no pressure to glam up. There's no pressure to even pay because it's free. To just give a lot of the women the freedom to then focus their energy on the things that really matter, that would help them. And I love that you're doing that as well on Breakthrough Women, giving them the space where they can just meaningfully connect and be open and ask questions, and then find people who can give them the connection and the advice that they need. But I love that there is curiosity. It's just creating that space where women can at least be curious and ask, why is this happening to me? Is it happening to anybody else? What are you doing about what's happening to you? And all of that. That's for me is a start.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's always someone else.
Yes.
Going through something
or has been through it and has come through the other end.
Yeah.
So making it so much easier.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I mean, it is tricky because it's hard to separate yourself because, as you say, you put so much time and effort into it, but it's very much about that lessons learned. Okay, so you have to be able to take a positive from that, and you have to be able to think, okay, look, it wasn't all bad, and there are always some great aspects that you then take forward to the next. And, and particularly as I think young, ambitious entrepreneurs, it's always, people start businesses, they may not be as successful as they thought they might be, but the next business, they take the good stuff and the learnings and they start something new. But it's about building your resilience. And I think, I'm already hearing that from, you sat up here and I was just in awe of, the two people you had on the stage. I was like, oh my goodness, this is incredible. But it is. It's about building your own resilience. And for every knockback, you come back so much stronger every time.
I think a really important addition to that is your mindset around the business. If you think about your business as developing a network and getting to know people, then the failure doesn't feel like a failure because you're almost always left with asset. And if you understand that your asset in business is people, then there's no failure, if that makes sense. I often say it, and I'll say it again, you have your people balance and your bank balance in any business, right? You have to work on both as much as the other. And so, when the business fails, you haven't failed.
Exactly.
You haven't failed. And it feels like a failure because you've missed the fact that you actually walk away with assets no matter what you do. That also means that you have to do business a certain way. And that's why I'm enjoying my SheEO mindset at the moment because, girl, I'm rich. Like,
exactly.
Seriously, I am rich at the moment, right? And I don't feel, I feel less and less afraid of this whole journey as every day goes by because, I'm piling up on my people balance for sure. Yeah. Okay. Let's do this. Music, please. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.